Right, I think that's enough time. So we'll crack on with another webinar Wednesday. So thank you all for jumping on today. Today's webinar is about the perfect applicant registration, and we have a special guest star, as you can see, which is industry-leading estate and letting agency trainer Tony Morris. So Tony, welcome. Thank you for coming.
No, thanks for having me. Really excited.
Definitely. So this is a series of 3 webinars, and this is the first webinar which is taking place today across the course of the remainder of the year with Tony. So the sort of process of this webinar is Tony's going to give you a presentation all about the perfect applicant registration. And in between that, we're also going to show you how you can improve the perfect applicant registration with the use of your CRM. Most of you will think that your CRM is just a client management tool where you can pop on there and store information. However, with Street, as I'm sure some of you are customers, you'll be aware that you can actually use this as a business generation tool now, which is far and few between the rest of them. So I'll hand over to Tony, and Tony can kick us off.
Thanks, Joe. Real pleasure to be here. So those of you who've not seen me, heard of me, worked with me, shame on you. But those of you that have, just to give you a very, very brief introduction, I've been training estate and letting agents now for just over 16 years. I've had the pleasure of working with over 360 independent agents all over the UK. I've also worked with about 15 of the leading real estate agents in Europe and in Asia. And I share that because I've probably listened to over 2,000 applicant registration calls. And I can count on one hand where I was absolutely blown away by how good those 5 were. Most of the calls are pretty poor. And I think the reason for that is often in sales or lettings, we run on autopilot. We take these calls. It's just one of the 10 calls we take in the day. We get our piece of paper out, or we turn on, Street to put the information in, and we almost become like robots. Okay, and it's like an interrogation mode. And most of the questions we ask those applicants are quite poor. What I want to achieve today for all of you is to give you the 5-step structure that the best 5 property agents in the whole world use. And I've been very blessed to work with these people. They are, these are the best of the best. So in this 3-part series, I'm going to share insights into what those 5 do differently to everybody else. But today's about the perfect applicant registration. And I want to start off by telling you a story. I mentioned I've worked with 360 independent agents. One of them was an agency called Chase Evans. I don't know if anyone's heard of them. They're based in Canary Wharf, the Docklands, 4 offices. And I was coaching on a Wednesday morning a lady called Laura. She was a lettings negotiator, but within Chase Evans, they took calls, be it for sales or lettings. They were trained on both. But I remember this call in particular on a Wednesday morning, and I'm going to play this call how I remember it. And what I would like all of you to do is grab a pen and paper. So if you haven't got one, go and get one right now. And as I share the call from memory, I want you all to write down as much detail as you can. Be aware of the questions that are asked, the statements that are made, as much detail as you can. And remember that I'm going to be taking you through the 5 steps that Laura used, and she was exceptional, absolutely exceptional. So please do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get some feedback from all of you into the chat box. Joe's very kindly going to share that information. And once we've got all of that, I'm going to take you through these 5 steps of exactly what to say. And I'm going to apply it to both lettings and sales, because I appreciate some of you will be doing both or just one. Okay, so this is how the call went. Good morning. Thank you for calling Chase Evans. Laura speaking. How can I help? Yeah, hi there. I'm looking to rent a 1-bed in the Docklands as quickly as possible. Fantastic. Well, I can absolutely help. My name's Laura Jenkins. Who am I speaking with? He said, it's Mike Beard. She said, well, look, thank you so much, Mike, for calling Chase Evans. She said, am I okay to call you Mike? He said, absolutely. He said, Mike, your landline has appeared on my phone. Please, can I get a mobile? Certainly, it's 07. Just out of curiosity, who recommended you to Chase Evans? He said, well, no one. I live in South Key. I've seen your boards everywhere, so I've chosen to call you. That's fantastic. The only reason I ask is most of our business is recommended. Whereabouts in South Key are you? He said, oh, we're currently renting in the Key Plaza. She said, I know it. A friend of mine used to be there. It's beautiful. You said you want to rent a one bed immediately. Do you mind me asking what the urgency is? He said, yeah, I've unfortunately split up with my fiance a couple of weeks ago. We're still living together. It's toxic and I need to get out. She said, like, I'm really sorry to hear that. We can absolutely help. Where specifically in the Docklands do you want to be? He said, you know what, I'm pretty open. He said, I like South Key, but I'm open. He said, I work in Cabot Square. I don't drive, so I do need to be sort of near a DLR station, but I'm pretty flexible. She said, okay, I know Cabot Square. What is it you do for work? And he said, I'm a trader at Morgan Stanley. She said, I know it. A few of our landlords also work there. You said you want to be near a DLR station. What do you deem as near? He said sort of a 10-minute walk would suffice. Okay. So tell me, Mike, what's the best property you've seen so far? He said, I viewed one in South Key on Juniper Gardens was the development about a week ago. Absolutely loved it, but it was just too much money for me. She said, I know it, just overlooking the Marsh Wall. It's beautiful. What specifically attracted you to it? He said everything. You know, I love the fact that there was a concierge there, that, you know, there was massive communal gardens, that there was a gym on site. He said, I do the gym every day at work, rather do it at home. And I love, there was just so much character, high ceilings, fireplace. It was just beautiful. You know, what's not to love? She said, I agree. She said, that is quite a big list you've just given me. Which of those things would you not compromise on? He said, well, I definitely want a garden. Summer's approaching in a couple of months. I'm going to want to sort of barbecue and entertain outside. He said the gym would be amazing, but I guess it's not a must because it is in my office. I definitely need a big lounge. It's where I'm going to spend most of my time. And they're the main things, really. The concierge, it was nice, but I'm not that bothered. She said, okay, that helps. She said, you mentioned it was too much money. What are you comfortable in spending up to? He said, really, my maximum is 1,750 a month. She said, okay, so you need to be earning in the region of 54,000 a year. Are you comfortable with that? He said, I am. I said, perfect. She said, Mike, I've got a couple of properties I want to show you. I think you're going to be blown away. We've had a lot of interest in there. They're both one beds. They're actually here in Limehouse, where I'm based. One's a 3-minute walk from the DLR. The other's about a 7-minute walk. Can't wait to show you. She said, let me just get your email address so I can email you. I want to get you there today, Mike, because you need to move quickly. And we've had a lot of interest. Looking at my diary, I can get you there this afternoon at 4:45 or 6:15. Which works better? He said, let's go for the later one, 6:15. Perfect. Let me get your email. I'll email the office address. Come meet me in the office about 6 o'clock. We'll go look at the properties. And that was it. She got the email and sent the email. 6 o'clock, Mike turns up. She walked up to me. You, Mike, Laura, lovely to meet you. Come and take a seat. She said, I was actually just getting myself a cup of tea. Would you like a tea or a coffee? He said, I love a coffee. So one of the team got him a coffee. She said, Mike, my manager, Adam, took on a one bed this morning. It's just outside of Limehouse. It is stunning. I just want to show it to you to get your feedback. She said, it is more than you mentioned you want to spend, but I just want to get some feedback. She turned the screen around. He said, it looks amazing, but 1,900 a month is pushing me. She said, I totally respect that. And then we went for a walk, finished the drinks. We went for a walk to the first property. On the walk, she said to Mike, I don't know how well you know Limehouse, but the local gym in this area is called Gym Box. She put a hand in her pocket and said, look, here's a couple of free gym passes. Try it out when you move to Limehouse. We walked into the first development. We walked up the stairs. It was overlooking the communal garden. He said, oh, fantastic. There's a big garden. Which way's the sun face? She said, it's southwest. We walked into the lounge. He had a wander around. He said, I know this is a stupid question, but I've never lived on my own. How much a bill's going to cost me? She said, that's not stupid. But she said the last tenant was paying about X per month. We left. We walked about 4 minutes down the road to the other development. We wandered around the development, and then Laura took Mike back to the office. She said, Mike, out of the two you've just seen, which one do you want? He said, the first one. He said, I absolutely loved it. She said, I knew you were going to say that. She said, look, we've got 6 viewings tomorrow. 3 of them are second viewings. I want those cancelled now. So, let's get the ball rolling, And he said, well, hang on a minute. I've got £1,700. What's the landlord going to accept? She said, look, it's on the market for 1770. And I actually think you'll be doing really well to get that asking price because the level of interest he's got. He said, well, look, okay, look, in that case, let's offer 1770. She said, great, look, let me put the offer through and I'll come back to you as soon as I've spoken to the landlord. A couple of days later, she said, good news, got hold of the landlord. He's agreed the offer and he's going to be cancelling viewings from now on. He said, that's amazing. Everything went through smoothly. Mike moved in about 10 days later. And when he walked into his flat, on the doorstep was a non-branded congratulations card. And it just read, Dear Mike, I wish you all the best in your new home. Warmest regards, Laura. I thought she was exceptional, but she wasn't world class. Today is how do we become world class in every single registration we take? And I actually believe Laura missed 5 things preventing her from being world class. I'm going to park those for a moment and I'll come back to them afterwards. I just now want to get some feedback from all of you who hopefully has taken a lot of notes of what you spotted. So let's start right at the beginning. Stage 1 was called the introduction. Let's get some feedback, if you don't mind. Put it into the chat box of what did you spot in the introduction in particular. And Joe's going to kindly read through some of that.
I'll keep an eye on the chat box there, see if things come through. I mean, one of the things, here we go. So introduce herself and ask for details about the applicant. So
good.
She got to really know the client and understand his needs. Very personable. Got to say lots of thanks for calling.
And Katie picked up multiple streams of contact. That's well spotted, Katie. We always want 2 numbers.
Absolutely. We've got listen to the client effectively. I think it's quite a good one there. These are flooding in now. Well done, people.
Georgina's just done a really good one. Who recommended you to Chase Evans? So well spotted. See, I think the key point there, Georgina, and hopefully for all of you, is there's 2 points. 1, it gets the source of the inquiry, but 2, it gives that wonderful perception. So no matter, unless they say, I've seen your boards, always ask who recommended you, followed up with, the only reason I ask is most of our business is recommended. Any other points in the introduction?
We've got great open questions.
Good. Very
polite and engaging. One thing from me actually was that she was very familiar. She familiarized herself with the client. I'm aware, I'm familiar with that location. I'm familiar with where you are, where you work. It was that familiarity with the local area, the local knowledge that Sam's put there.
Absolutely. And you know what I loved, and hopefully this will come up later, she had a conversation, not an interrogation. People don't want to be registered. That's the first thing I hear agents say is, are you registered? And it's a bit of a weird question because it's almost like, am I on a register? It's like a bit of a panic. It's a bit weird. So avoid language that they won't understand. So let's move on. That was the introduction. Let's go to stage 2, which is the situation. What did we notice? A couple of you already put things in, such as local knowledge, Helen and Sam. Absolutely. She knew areas. What else?
Just scrolling up, we've got asking personal information, so personal questions about the situation.
Good. And there was great empathy with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. She went the extra mile for him, someone's put.
Yep, I agree. And I just want to add here, Joe, her knowledge was exceptional, right? She knew Morgan Stanley, she knew the area. Yep. However, she was from Wembley, right? Nowhere near the Docklands. And I said to her, how the hell did you know so much? And her manager, Adam, and I love this, he created a knowledge Bible. And in all 4 offices, they had their own knowledge Bible, which was basically all the information that you should need when qualifying a landlord, vendor, buyer, or applicant. Things like where's the local gym, the tennis courts, sports centres, doctors, hospitals. And he used to do a test every Friday where he asked 5 questions where the answer was in the Knowledge Bible. And he said, if you don't know the answer, go and find it out, add it to the Bible. And I love that. That gave real confidence to the customer.
I think that's a fantastic idea for anyone to have in their agency, to be honest, which is really good. We've got a couple of other questions or answers coming through. So 2 of them, which I think were really good. Asked about his priorities and got his wish list from him.
Yeah, so that was more, you're absolutely right. That was more qualifying the property, which is stage 3. The situation, though, for me, it was she fully understood his situation, was very empathetic, appreciated it was urgent. And then she started to qualify, what do you mean by near? Near to me is a minute walk. Near to him was a 10-minute walk. So I think if there's ever vague language, clarify it. Yeah. I want to be in a good area. What does good area mean? Right. So that was the situation. Let's talk now. And we're going to go into detail about that afterwards, but let's move into property now. What did you notice, boys and girls, when it came to the property requirements?
So going back then, obviously got his wish list. He needed something with outdoor space. She found out about his interests. So for example, a gym isn't usually in someone's property requirements, but being close to it in terms of locality, I think is quite a specific property requirement.
And I think Esma put, what would you not compromise on, which I love. Great question. Rather than, is there anything specifically you want? What would you not compromise on is better? And Amy spotted, great question. What's the best property you've seen so far? See, most agents say, have you been looking long? Yeah. Seen anything you like? No. Really bad questions. Whereas what's the best you've seen so far? It cuts out the noise. You go right to what they've seen, what they loved.
I think that's extremely true. I think, even myself guilty of asking those same questions. And, looking back now, they are not the best questions to be asking, to be honest.
Yeah.
What else have we got? We've got listen to what he wants and needs and compromise it, what he can compromise on, what he can't compromise on.
Lauren said about comfortable spending, Lauren, and you're absolutely spot on, but that's stage 4 finance. And this is a really important point. We want to try and keep it in this order because it just flows. Now, it doesn't massively matter if you have to skip to level, stage 4 finance, come back, but it won't flow as well. We want to make it as seamless and as comfortable as possible for our applicant.
Local knowledge and great knowledge of the property.
Good.
Or properties that she's describing to the applicant.
And how important is that, right? We need to know our stock. So if you're not a valuer, the lister or valuer should be communicating daily what they've been out to see, what's coming on, what they lost on, and they need to know what's available in the market. So when he said Juniper Gardens, she knew it immediately. It's really, really important to build that credibility.
I think what was also important about the call, maybe this is the wrong stage and you'll tell me if I'm wrong or not, which is that she knew about the other new listing, the 3rd listing that was coming to market.
Yes.
It was knowing what's coming as well as what's already on.
Correct. And what I loved is she was very clever to preface it with, it's more than you mentioned. Because had she said, do you want to see this? He'd have said 1,900 a month. I can't afford that. I told you that. So we've got to be very careful. We do know that applicants will give a budget and there is sometimes flexibility, but never assume. Preface with, it is more than you mentioned, but just take a look.
Cool. Let's have a look. She knew other properties with other agents.
Yes, good. Absolutely. And I think the other thing is she had answer to his questions. Which way's the sun facing? What's the average bill the tenant's paid? It's your job to know that. Now, I appreciate some of you won't be valuers, but your valuer's job should be inputting this detail onto street. There should be an area that says Southwest, council taxes X, blah, 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 right? That information should be accessible to you. Joe, I think you were going to mention something before we talk about finance. You were going to talk about something on situational. Do you want to do that after when I go through the slides?
I think we'll do that after when we go through the slides. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So stage 4 was finance. What did people, I know Lawrence picked up, what are you comfortable in spending, which is excellent. Anyone else pick up the other thing she did?
Let's have a look and see through. What have we
Actually,
got from
Lauren
the
got
chat?
it.
We've got why
Lauren
are you
said,
moving? Yep.
calculate his salary without asking, because it's rude, right? When you say, what do you earn? They'll get the hump and go, what do you earn? You make them defensive, right? It's a rude question. By saying you need to be earning in the region of X, are you comfortable, is much more softer language, which makes people comfortable, makes them comfortable.
Yeah, I think people have nailed that one on the chat there.
So let's move on to stage 5, the close. What did we notice?
So one thing that I noticed is that she created a sense of real urgency to close that deal on the spot there and then. She didn't leave it for a few days to make a decision. It was, let's get this done now to secure you a home. You need to move immediately. Let's tie this up for you.
And Neil said, get in the office. I think that should be a default unless it's not feasible. And Julie spotted 2 options, right? It's proven 80% of people always go for the second option because of recency. So whatever you want second, or whatever you want, put second. And also the alternative close is much, much better. But Joe, as you said, she created urgency by, we've had so much interest. I need you there today. Really, really important. Georgina spotted the close right at the end when Laura went back into the office of which one do you want? And that's brilliant, but that wasn't the call. I'm talking more about the close on the phone call. Does anyone know why Laura suggested 4:45 or 6:15? Anyone know the reason behind? Because there was a motive behind that. Anyone know what that was?
I'm going to stick my hand up and have a guess, but I'll leave it to the comments. I think they're very similar. One of them is it's after work or after working hours. There might not be any other viewings taking place after, so we're the last ones to be seen.
Rayhan actually got it. Rayhan got it. He said it makes it seem like she's busy. Because if you say, look, I'm free all day, when's good, it's not very appealing. So by putting it on a specific time, 4:45, 4:15, it implies she's got bookings the rest of the day. They call this psychological numbers. 97p is cheaper than £1. Whenever you see a sale at DFS, it's always 797, not 800. And now be aware of this when you book a table at a restaurant. You phone up and go, can I book a table this evening? And they'll say, well, hang on. And I'll say, look, we've got a booking at 7:45, or we can get you in at sort of 9:15, which is better. And then you turn up and the restaurant's dead. They do it really well. Whereas if they said you're our first booking this week, it doesn't look great. So when you book a valuation or a viewing, don't do it on the hour. Always give that sense of you're busy.
It's a very good point, that. Especially the restaurant analogy as well.
The other point, right, is ask for the viewing. I reckon 80% of the calls I listen to say, would you like to view, or should I just email you the particulars? 80% go for the seconds. They go, yeah, just email me the particulars. They phone to buy or let a property. Let them see it. Without that feedback, you're not doing business. Remember the goal of the call. Get them in, let them view, get feedback, or get an offer. Either or, you're winning. Okay. So they are the 5. I'm going to dive into the misses afterwards. Let's go through now. I'm going to share my slides. And I'm just going to go back a second.
We have a question actually from Rayhan, if you'd like to answer it. So how can you get over the objection of them asking to see particulars before booking viewings?
Good question. So don't hide anything. Say, look, absolute pleasure. Of course, I'll email you the particulars. However, I insist you see it, and I'll tell you why. To get real feedback, in order for me to help you find your ideal property, you can't do that off the photos. You need to see it, because we've had such great feedback on the property. To be honest, the particulars don't do it justice. So have a look, but come and see it still. So, because if you say, look, I'm not going to send it, come and see it, it's like you're hiding something, and people don't want to feel like you're hiding something from them. Great question, though. So these are the 5 steps: introduction, situation, property, finance, close. Okay, let's go through them one by one. So first one, introduction, right? No one picked up on the corporate welcome. Good morning. Thanks for calling Chase Evans. Tony speaking. Always give your name first before asking their name, right? Because if you say, who am I speaking with? They'll go, who am I speaking with? We've got to be really clear with that and ask their permission. Am I okay to call you Michael or Mike? Because they might say, actually, can you call me Mr. Beard, please? Yeah. And that really important one, who recommended you to X estate? If it was a recommendation, go, oh, brilliant. Who was it? I'd like to follow up and say thank you. If it's anything other like Rightmove or whatever, you just say, that's great. The only reason I ask is most of our business is recommended. Plant the seed early. Okay. Okay. Situation. So look, if you think about it, there's only 3 situations. They live with mum and dad or a friend or a partner. They own a property, which could lead very nicely into what are they doing with it? Is there a market appraisal? But equally, if they're renting, which Mike was, there's landlord detail opportunity. Okay, this is a really big one, which I want to talk about now after Joe's going to speak. And then we found out timescales. Mike needed something urgently. We questioned that and understood why. But I know, Joe, you want to chat, you want to come in and mention something at this stage. Just unmute, Joe.
Apologies there. So just sort of relating back to having all of the local knowledge and being that local expert to have better conversations with people, I just want to take this moment in time to share my screen and show you a little bit about applicant registration within our Street CRM and show you how that can give you that extra bit of local knowledge, and ask you, Tony, as well, what you would do with that information and how you would have that conversation. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. If you can let me know when you can see that, Tony.
Yeah, we can see it.
Excellent. So this is just a quick demonstration then of applicant registrations within Street and how the Street and Spectre integrations work side by side. So if I go and quickly register a new sales applicant within the system, we're firstly going to start typing an applicant, and I'm going to create a dummy applicant for today. Excuse the names. So we take the normal contact details as Laura did over the phone. We're going to take a mobile number and then add any notes, specifically what they're after. But also then we're going to take an address. Now the address is the important thing within this, because if we search for the address here, before we've even got their situation from them, before we've even had that question from them, when we select their address and we save that person, it should then check the Street integration. And as you can see here, for example, and this property's literally just changed. Yesterday, this was still available, but immediately you get a full rundown of their current situation without having to even go into the system or ask those questions with them. It shows that you're the local expert. Now, yesterday that was for sale, so it's just bad luck that I've pulled a sold subject to contract property. But time on market 3 months ago, it's currently on the market, for example, it's on with Hill's agent, listed for 270. How would you use that information then, Tony, to spark a deeper conversation to prompt, for example, another valuation opportunity if you already know it's on with another agent and been on?
I love it. I mean, that's fantastic. And I think that this, again, is building credibility. They'll trust you. But I think, you know, we'd say that's really interesting. We noticed this sold at this figure. When we know, therefore, they own, just say, you know, can I ask what steps you've taken with regards to your property? Get them engaged. And listen to what they've said. They might say, look, we've actually had a couple of agents out already. Fantastic. And what was their feedback? And then say, well, look, because we're going to be dealing with your onward, use us as a benchmark. Let us come out. Let me give you what we believe is the right figure for you and just benchmark it against others, etc., etc. But this is the really important bit. Don't go for the valuation close then. They phoned up about viewing a property or looking to buy or rent. That's where their priority is, and we've got to go with that. At the end of the 5 steps, once we've closed for the viewing, we can go, Mike, you mentioned earlier that you are looking to come to the market with your property. Can I ask you a bit more about it? Then you start qualifying the vendor, or the other case, the landlord. That's really important, but make sure you do it at the end of that call.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony. And then the second example, if I just do another one here and create a second applicant. So I'm going with the Lord of the Rings theme today, it seems. We have, if a property is not on the market currently, but they do have a property to sell. So quite interesting about how Street works here. If I just type in a postcode and we pick an address, save that person as an applicant. Now down here, we have what branch you're registering this. If you're a multi-branch agency, you can register an applicant to your specific branch, but buying position is quite important within the street system. So if we mark that they have a property to sell, immediately we have an auto detect within street, which says we've auto detected that they have a property to sell that's within your branch patch. Now within street, you can set your location parameters as to what you cover as a branch. So that's automatically detected. Not only do they have a property to sell, it's in your area. Then you go through the normal applicant registrations with budgets and bedroom sizes. Now, where street differs, and we're going to come on to this a bit later in Tony's presentation, is applicant matching to properties. Unlike most CRMs where it's very binary, it's do you want a detached? Yes, no. Do you want, how many bedrooms do you want? Just 4. Street allows you to have a minimum and a preferred number. It also allows you to have preferences on considerations. Won't consider detached, but might consider a semi-detached, for example, or strong preference to one or other, along with specific house features, barn conversions, farmhouses, things like outside spaces you mentioned before, needs to have a garden, so must-haves. So it's a lot more diverse, this applicant registration, which we're going to come on to. Now, if I just quickly save that sales applicant and just go back to the auto detect of a property to sell in your area. If we go to the sales applications tab here, and we go to the buying position, which filtered out by property to sell, and I get rid of all these filters. Bear with me. Property to sell. We now have a list of buyers that have a property to sell that have been registered with us. So this is now your hot leads list to be ringing through on a weekly basis to try and convince those vendors to bring that property to market. Have you already been out to evaluation? If you haven't, let's get one booked in. How would you recommend to run this list, Tony?
That's amazing. I'm honestly blown away, but I haven't seen this. I'm blown away by this. So definitely say, look, using street, which we invest in, and use that word, which we invest heavily in. We're able to see hot buyers right now that will come out and view your property. The only thing I'd add to that is instructions are bait. So when you take on instruction, don't feel rushed that you've got to get the 10 buys in the following day, because if we can use it as bait and attract more buys, maybe a few days down, a few days later, those buys are going to come with potentially a market appraisal. So I think it's really important. I think Phil's asked you a question. Can you filter it for properties to sell in my area?
Yes, you can, Phil. Yes.
Excellent. Love that. So if we go back to, do I just go back to showing my slide?
Click on your presentation.
Excellent. So 5 misses. This is the first one. And I find this so often, okay? And if they are in rented, okay, they're renting in your area. If it's out of area, different story. But he was renting in South Key. Laura missed that because he's vacating the property. Now, we don't know about his ex, what their plans are. But if the ex is moving out as well, that landlord is about to lose their tenants. As a buy-to-let landlord myself, I hate my property being vacant. It's costing me rent every day that I'm missing out on. So we need to speak to that landlord if we can to learn and understand their situation. So the way you get it is as follows. You simply would have said, you mentioned earlier, Mike, that you're currently renting. We would love, then I would say, actually, you mentioned you're renting in the Key Plaza. The lettings market moves so quick. We need to speak to your landlord just to get a reference on you. Please, can I get your landlord's details? Now, there's 3 outcomes of that. 1, I don't know them. He'll say it's managed by Foxtons, don't know them. 2, I haven't served notice. I don't want to make them aware yet. I respect that. But 3, you'll get them. And what I find, about 35% of the time, you will get the landlord's details. What's exciting about that is now you've got an opportunity to take on a new property, which they may be looking to sell or let. Number 2, they may have a portfolio. Number 3, like me, they may have a buy-to-let mortgage that they've not reviewed. And number 4, they may have an appetite to buy another one. We need these landlord's details. And an exercise I want you all to do, not right now, but I want you to just write this down because this will shock all of you, is work out after this session Number one, how many applicants you registered in the last 12 months. So write that down. You're going to work it out later. Number two, so applicants registered in 12 months. Number two, how many of them were in renting in your area? Often clients tell me it's about 50%, 70%. It does depend on geography. But how many of them were renting in your area? And number three, how many landlord's details did you get?
We have a question here for you, Tony, from Neil, which is, how would you word this if the applicant is in rental but looking to buy?
Yeah, good, because you know whether he or she was a good tenant is irrelevant. So Neil, great question. What you say is the following: when you've closed the viewing, you said, you mentioned earlier, Neil, that you're currently renting at the Key Plaza. We would love to chat to your landlord to see what their plans are with that property. And if we do business with that landlord, we'd like to give you £100 Amazon voucher just to say thank you. Now, I must preface this with, speak to, if you're the owner, great. If you're not the owner of your agency, speak to the owner or the director or your manager to get permission. Some of my clients give away £200, some give away £50, but that's not for landlord's details. That's if you do business. Otherwise, it could cost you a fortune. So that's what I'd say now. So that's your situation. There was another miss, though, at this point with regards to the situation. Did anyone spot it? Write in the chat if you spotted the other miss.
Chat's quite quiet at the moment. Might take people a while to get typing.
Let me help. Where was Mike's ex going? There we are. Neil, you got
it.
it.
Neil's nailed it.
Now, when I said that to Laura, she's like, I'm not going there. And I said, fair enough. Look, I would, because our job is to serve and help. But she was uncomfortable. I respected that. Okay, let's move on. Property. So there was only 4 questions, but it was beautiful qualification. So when an applicant comes in on a specific property, say through Rightmove, Zoopla, what on the market, the question is, what attracted you to it? Most agents say, is that the sort of thing you're looking for? Horrendous question. If they don't come in on a specific, then use TED. Tell, explain, describe. Another nice one, which was commented on earlier, what's the best you've seen so far? That gets them engaged. Find out what they loved and then say, what would you not compromise on? Evie's asked, how does asking an applicant for their landlord with GDPR? Evie, great question. As long as, and that's a really great question, as long as you get permission from that applicant to speak to their landlord, that's key. So when they go, I know my landlord, his name's Bob, say, fantastic. Well, look, because of GDPR, I do need permission to speak to Bob. Please have a word with him and come back to me, or I'll come back to you just to make sure you've got permission. So Evie, well reminded, that's really important. So thank you. Okay, that's property. Finance. So I now moved it to sales, okay? So the most agents say, what's your budget? I don't like it. Budget sounds like an interrogation again, right? So I prefer, what are you looking to spend up to? They say 500,000. Great. How did you arrive at that number? Now you provoke conversation. They'll say, well, I've spoken to Barclays, who I've banked with for 20 years. Brilliant. What arrangements did you make with Barclays? This is when they'll probably say either we had a chat or we've got an agreement in principle. This is the killer question. You say, that's fantastic. You've got an AIP, going to put you in a strong position. Can I just ask, who have you compared them against? When my clients use that, often they will triple the number of mortgage appointments. And I know that's one thing that's important to agents is getting more mortgage appointments, right? Because you're going to help your clients. And that's what we're there to do, as well as earning commission. We're there to serve and help. Don't say, would you like to speak to our broker? If you don't want to know, don't ask a question that could lead to a no. So who have you compared them against? They'll often say they haven't. That's when you do your pitch. And you say, you know, a lot of my clients are with MAB. Say to them, look, we use MAB. They've got access to the entire market, over 120 lenders. They will help you get a better option. When's a good time for my broker, Bob, to reach out to you? And the technique there is don't ask, tell. When can they reach out? Okay. finally, I think, Joe, you missed something with property. I think you were going to talk about your property match on street.
Yes, sorry. So again, this is just another flick over to the product. So we spoke, or Laura spoke quite in depth about the property requirements of Mike. And this is a part of a CRM system that you can use to increase your number of listings. So Laura gave Mike multiple options of what they have on the market based on his requirements. And what Street can help you do is actually help you find what we call the perfect match within the CRM details that they have inputted. So if I flick back over to Street, can you see that?
Yep, we can.
Amazing. So I'm just going to go and search for an applicant now, and I'll use Heather Staff as an example. So this is the persons page, and we're going to go and view the sales applicant, because Heather could be multiple people. She could be a vendor, a sales applicant, and a buyer, for example. And then just down on the right-hand side, where most CRMs have property matches, as you can see here, we have something built called the perfect match. Now, as I mentioned before, where most CRMs are very binary, it's do you want a detached? Yes, no. When we have the preferred system, won't consider, would strongly consider. The perfect match now allows us to match them to specifically their requirements or their needs. So although Heather might have inquired about 1 Acacia Avenue, when we click on the perfect match results, we'll start to see properties that have a score by percentage once it loads, and forgive me for my internet, as to what properties are perfectly matched to Heather. So we can see here, although Heather's inquired about 1 Acacia Avenue, actually 34 Catherine Road is 100% matched to Heather's requirements. It has 3 bedrooms, it's detached, it's got 5 parking spaces. So you can see here the applicant's preferences on the right-hand side, and you'll see the reasons as to why it's 100% perfect match Heather to 34 Catherine Road. And again, if you're sat in front with the client, you can quickly browse through the photos and show Heather why the reasons this has been perfectly matched. You might get other matches as well that are 80%, 90%, 50%, which you can go through. But this is a really strong way to be able to increase your multiple options of viewings, rather than just being very sort of tunnel visioned on just the property that they've inquired about. Because more often than not, people do buy or rent other properties that they haven't necessarily inquired about if you've got the know-how of your entire portfolio.
Love that. And that goes back to, Joe, you know, almost you're making life so easy with Street. You don't even need to know what stock you've got, because that will do it for you. I mean,
Exactly.
It's always helpful to know, but this is just it's almost like a comfort blanket. It's phenomenal.
Definitely.
Sam asked a great question regarding FS. He said, if someone says they have compared and they've got an IFA locked in, how would you tell over ask to speak to your broker? So no, Sam, great question. It wasn't covered. You just say that is so good that you've got a specific IFA or a broker, you know, you're step ahead of the game. What we often find though, Sam, is a lot of brokers have different exclusive with different lenders. So because this is going to be the biggest purchase of your life, my strong recommendation is you just have a 10-minute conversation just to make sure, to give you peace of mind that your lender, IFA, broker is got you the best option. So the key words, Sam, is, or the key words there is peace of mind, most expensive purchase of your life, get that across. But if they're adamant, they say, no, I'm good, you say that's okay. Don't push it, because otherwise I call it commission breath. No one likes commission breath. Okay, let's move on. So we talked about finance. Now we go into, property. We talked about finance, then we go into the close. Looking at my diary. Now, what I want you to think about is, if they've inquired about one property, you know why, you know what they want compromise. Say to them, if you've got, using property match that Joe showed you earlier, say, you know what, I've got a couple of other gems I believe you're going to love even more. Look, let's when you come out with me tomorrow, I'm going to take keys to show you those as well. Looking at my diary, A or B. You don't need to show them particulars unless they are absolutely adamant. The whole purpose of your role on a viewing is to get honest feedback, which will allow you to either get an offer or make some recommendations. So it's really, really important. Okay, there are still 3 misses. So 1 was landlord's details, 2 was where's the ex going. There were 3 others. Did anyone else spot the other misses?
I'll leave that open to the chat. Give them a moment to give their
So
feedback.
they're your 5 steps, guys and girls.
We've got
Georgina
timeline
said
from
time.
Georgina.
No, we did get that. We said he mentioned urgent, and we said, why is it urgent going through the breakup? Mike, well done. How long are you looking to rent for? You know, is it a 12-month with a 6-month break clause? That's actually not one of my 3, but I'm now going to add that in. So thank you, Mike. Neil said, does he own any other property? Yeah, you could ask that. You could ask that. I think it's almost moving away from helping him. So Georgina, I meant in terms of his move from his present rate. Okay, fine. Timeline. Okay, that makes sense, Georgina. But that's not one of the 3. So no one's got it yet. Think about Mike. What do we know about Mike? Good. Insurance cover. So what I want to think about is the add-ons. Was there another opportunity? Now at Chase Evans, they actually do removals. They move furniture from one place to the other. And I said to Laura afterwards, why didn't you offer that? And she said, I didn't want to seem pushy. And I said to her, that's okay. Do you think he needed that? She said, probably. Then it's not pushy. I call this share of wallet. If you're able to help your client, don't be scared of offering it because you're helping them. They're grateful for it. You're making their life easier. So Mike, spot on. Helen said, would he like to remain in the system, possibly explore mortgage if he's looking to buy? Yeah, Helen, good shout. No discussion of deposit options. I think, Daniel, that's because it was obviously a let rather than a sale or a purchase. So that I think. Any broker friends? Does he know anyone looking to buy or rent? So Julie said, does he know anyone looking to buy or rent? Julie, be more specific there. Think about, Julie, what you've said. Try and be specific because you're absolutely on it, but I want you to be specific. Julie said,
great
does he know
suggestions
anyone?
coming in here.
Really good. I'm pleased that the brains are thinking. Just because of time, let me help Julie out. He worked at Morgan Stanley. Now, you might not know Morgan Stanley. A friend of mine is a VP there. They employ 3,500 people in Cabot Square. It is a guarantee some of those 3,500 people are landlords, vendors, or applicants. Laura was not thinking about it. So when you qualify an applicant, find out what they do for work because it shows you're interested. Find out if it's local, then do a bit of research. And if it's quite a big company, be it 100 people plus, don't be scared to ask to be introduced. So Laura took my advice. She went back to Mike a couple of weeks after the move in. How did it all go? You happy? Great. She said, can I ask a small favor? He said, of course. You mentioned you're a trader at Morgan Stanley. Could I come down one morning, meet some of your fellow traders to see if I can help any of them? It took about 3 weeks to organize. She met one of the gentlemen. He had 17 properties in the Docklands. They did a rent review and took over some of those properties. That became a very big customer for Laura. Okay, so that was definitely one miss. And then the final one was the add-on. Did anyone get the 5th and final miss? So we've got Landlord, X, Morgan Stanley, add-ons, final miss. Mike was now single. I think Laura should have been all over that, no? Wealthy trader. That one I'm joking. You can't do that. So how do we remember these? How do we remember these steps? First of all, the best way to remember it, if you look at those 5 steps, is what I want you to do now is circle the first letter of all the steps. So I for introduction, S for situation, P for property, finance, and close. What do you get? ISPA. It just rolls, right? So another way to remember ISPA, because it's not that memorable, is that I sell property for commission. It's important you remember it. Why? Because you might be at the pub and you might get introduced to someone who says, yeah, I'm looking to buy or rent. You can't go, bear with me, let me get a piece of paper I've got in the office. You need to remember, right, I sell property for commission. Let's take some details and say, look, I can help you. What's your current situation? Because hopefully you know their name by this point. You can get their number at the end, so on and so forth. Katie asked, why did she choose? Very good question. Why did she choose an unbranded? The actual, I preferred it, Katie, but the reason isn't that she preferred it. She went to the 3 directors of Chase, said, can we do this? And they said, it's a great idea, but we're not paying for it. So therefore she went to, I think, a local Costco and bought 500 congrats cards for like £20. And it was one of her habits, excuse me, was when the buyer or tenant moved in, she sent out a card, which I thought was a very nice touch.
Yeah, definitely, Helen. Good for her.
Absolutely. Any other questions on anything that we've just gone through?
Yes, we're due to wrap up today's webinar. So any questions you have for Tony whilst we're here, or myself, please fire through the Q&A now, and we'll give it a couple of minutes before we wrap up today's webinar.
One recommendation I have for everyone, and this is what I say to clients when I work with them, is when you finish the qualification and you've done all your notes, hopefully you've booked a viewing and the phone's gone down and the notes are on the street, ask yourself these two questions. Number one, what is the most I could have got from that call? Number two, what did I get? And when those numbers match up, that is a perfect call. So in Laura's situation, she could have got multiple viewings, which she did. She could have got the ex's details. She could have got landlord's details. She could have got removal, and she could have got a referral to Morgan Stanley. 5 opportunities. She got one of them until afterwards. Really, really important.
We've got some questions coming in here, Tony.
Yasser, what's your best advice for beginners in the industry? Yasser, look, whether you're a beginner or you've been doing this for 25 years, you should always be open to learn, right? I've been in sales for 24 years. I have a mentor. I read, on average, 2 sales books a month. My advice is invest in yourself. If your boss, director, owner wants to invest in you, great. If not, you should be investing in yourself, because ultimately it's your future, it's your career. We can speak offline, but I have a product called EA University. I work exclusively with Street and Spectre, so it's something we can talk about. It's an e-learning product for £47 a month that will help you. If you're interested, give me get in touch and I can speak to you about it. Any other questions at all?
So we've got our people scrolling up. We've got people saying that they use moving hampers. Thoughts on moving hampers? Branded moving hampers?
Love them. I think, look, you've got to do something. I like the personal card. Moving hampers are great. Do something. Something's better than nothing. I do think the personal card is a better touch. One idea for you, especially for sales, is give them branded "We're Moving" cards. Because give them 25 branded "We're Moving" cards, because they're likely to send it to their friends and family, some of which will be local, and it's got your logo and website on the branded moving cards. So therefore, if they're thinking, they're going to call you. Zoe, go and sell houses.
So thank you everyone for jumping on today's webinar. Like I say, this is a series of 3 webinars. The next one will be hosted in November, so keep an eye out for that. We will send communications. Webinar 2 will be based on 3 strategies to increase your conversion rates from valuation to instruction. So please look out for that one. That will also be with Tony and myself. But thank you for everyone joining today. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Joe, just to jump in there, final point, because of working exclusively with you, I have an exclusive offer where I'm going to do 5 discovery calls with 5 of you. These are for directors and owners. I say only, you're more than welcome to join the call, but these are for 5 directors or owners of your agency. So in the follow-up email, you're going to get a link to my diary, but it's first come, first serve. I only have capacity to do 5 calls in October. So I'm more than happy to give that to you. But it's first come, first serve. So look out for the email. You'll get my Calendly link. Book a time.
Should also have a pop-up on the screen now for the securing your slot for that with Tony's Calendly link on there. So please give that a shout. And as always, if you're interested in seeing anything more to do with Street or Spectre from what you've seen today, please feel free to get in touch with us or get in touch with your customer success manager. We are more than happy to help.
Thank you,
Excellent.
guys.
Thank you, Tony.
My pleasure. Lovely to be here. Really enjoyed it.
See you all soon.